It's now my pleasure to introduce you to Rahul Lodhe from SAP. Rahul, if you could join us. It's no word of a lie to say that Rahul is a world-class engineering leader with nearly 20 years experience in designing, developing, and testing enterprise software products with expertise in domains like analytics and business intelligence, IoT, and machine learning. So at that point, I am going to pass you into the highly capable hands of Rahul. Rahul, thank you very much for joining us. Really looking forward to this presentation.
Excellent, thank you. I just would like to share my screen. Brent, can you give me the presentation rights? I don't see it. Oh, yep, now I have.
Yep, my apologies, everyone. That was my fault, not Rahul's.
No problem. Yep, just a second. Yeah, I hope you are able to see my screen and able to hear me loud and clear. Brett, can you confirm you're able to see my screen?
We can see your screen and we can hear you loud and clear, Rahul.
Excellently. Thank you and welcome to the session, and thanks all for joining around the world for the session. Maybe next 30 or so minutes, I would take you through the different AI strategy for the for enterprise adoption, and then we also talk about the challenges that we would have to adopt the AI strategies, and then we will follow with the question and answer definitely. Let's get started. So typically today, what we see, the many of enterprises are struggling to make the maximum value of their existing data. What do we see is that the many enterprises have built their data in terabytes and petabytes over the period of time. But when it comes to realizing the value of the real data, there is a big struggle going on, and the many data science initiatives they start. So everyone want to become next like Google or Uber or somewhere they really use the AI technologies. But yeah, the reality is far away that most of their initiative get failed, and then when they try to go for the production grade solution. So there's always disconnect between data scientists to data need versus what they want to build, and that's a struggle that enterprises get. The other struggle that enterprises look into is with the way they look. Their landscapes are complicated, right? So their current landscapes are, when they look at it, it's being built over the ages, and I think everyone feels that they have a different data store. Their finance data doesn't talk to HR data. There is the sales data has been a different location, and within that also there has been, yeah, someone can see something, someone should not see something. So there has been always been challenge about how this different data can be not managed, as well as they have been siloed within their application, and everyone feels that has been a complex situation. Believe me, it's across most of the enterprise customer we see these challenges coming up there. They also quite struggle to implement the AI in their organizations, considering there has been a lot of initiative been taken, but not all the initiative been supported by the management, or there have been yeah, good, let's start the AI project in. But the moment you reach to the reality, so many of AI projects reach to the POC stage, but getting them to real production and implement to the end-to-end realization of that sometimes is very tricky, and it's very difficult for them to do it. And what we see, very few reaches to the real enterprise level, and there are few reasons to that about the approaches and strategy that they take to make it happen. That's something we'll discuss over the presentation. The another challenge is also compliance, data protection, privacy. The company has to spend a lot more money to make the regulatory compliance, which is pretty huge. It goes, per employee cost about 7K per employee, because it's involved a lot of regulatory issues. So we have to be careful when we talk about machine learning and data science and AI implementation as well, because there's a very fine gap between what is the private and personal data versus the data that you feed to model to learn it and make it reality. So companies has been struggling on that front as well, the strategy that you look forward to implement for enterprise has to be considered the compliance approach very much. So to address these challenges, we really need to reimagine our business processes. There's nothing that we can think of it that the way currently my businesses work, I could work similar way. The way I have been operating for last 10 years, I could operate the similar way, and still I could take the advantage of the AI. There are importantly 4 pillars that we look forward to. How does you should look at your enterprises to reimagine the business processes. The first and foremost, importantly, take the data the value of your complete data. So your data has to be somewhere where it has to be the reusable format. Your data has to be somewhere where you have to little bit of organize in such a way that some meaning can be come out of it. It can be operationalized for the machine learning data sets. You have to make data as a really asset. So there will be a lot of data availability there, but before you look at just your raw data versus what output of the data can I take. So maybe in the traditional way, probably would making data marts or getting some meaningful structure of a data. That's something that you have to focus on. Second important part is the simplify and unify your data. That's something which is important. So you have to analyze, correlate. The data has been there in the multiple data sources at the distributed environment. So you have to get those data together from the multiple data sources and then make it happen for where you can able to access the data, because being data available at the multiple places is not helpful, where you need to be at least a connectivity across the data set that you tell. So first part that you did is you kind of make your metadata available. Second part, you try to build a relationship around data and also simplify the data life cycle there. So that's what we call unification of the data. Third part is looking at the how to implement it confidently. So how when the AI comes in picture, it's important that we are talking about machine learning models. We need a model, so we have data part sort out, and then we need to really think about how I can build the model. What happened many times that mistake, typically we do that the AI machine learning model building activity starts parallelly, and then the data that we get from IT is in Excel sheets, and those Excel sheet data, when you really try to build the model and try to deploy in production, data part is always disconnected, right? So because some data that you got in Excel sheets are really not get to your production system that's available for you. So you have to be really look forward to make your data which can be available confidently, and understand that how does that particular machine learning model is going to connecting back to data and deliver to the automation at the scale. The fourth part is compliance that we spoke about. So we need to have most of the compliance to be also ensured that are there, and as well the one of the level where how I can managing the governance of the data, who can see what kind of data, how can I use the privacy of the data, the anonymization of how I am getting data is not keeping the private data into it. So I need to have the data has been properly managed and governed till the time I could use that also for my machine learning capability. So that's something will give me always a confidence that what I'm showing is or what I'm inferencing out of the data that I'm getting it, I'm not violating any rule from the governance point of view. So these 4 are the key pillars, we'd say, to reimagine how we need to operate it. Let's go a little more in detail. So what is the AI strategy all about? When we talk about the enterprise AI strategy all about. So especially from an AI perspective, when we look at the technical perspective, then we have to think these 3 important things, right? So this is more on technology aspects of it. As we talk about how the infrastructure and technology has to work together, we'll look at how the scale the AI experimentation that we are doing. So when we talk about the scaling, artificial intelligence is more on how I'm designing it, how I'm deploying it, and how I'm delivering across the enterprises. So it's not always that when we build something as such, it has to be work only for that particular smaller use case, but whatever I'm building it, it has to deliver to the so the larger purpose of the enterprise. That's why we say how am I able to deploy and deliver the AI across the different enterprises, and it has to be scale out. Something that I'm building it for the one division, it has to scale out to multiple division. If I'm making it for the one distributor or one dealer, that particular model, that has to be scaled out to the different distributor in a country or different languages when we talk about the worldwide adoption as well. So you have to think about that kind of aspects, and when we're talking about those aspects, also to look at how it will scale out in terms of your infrastructure as well. So you need to leverage the Kubernetes or more elastic the infrastructure technology, and not to make it more monolithic stack. So that's something which we have to think from the scaling point of view. How do you extract the value of your data? That's something we touch upon as well. Connected to assets, so you have to get data together, and you need your right tools and technologies to make that happen. And third and most important pillar is always you have to embrace the new open source technologies. It's not that I could build something with myself. AI is the area, machine learning is the area. Every day there are new open sources are coming. Every day there are different technologies has been invented, and we have to leverage them. It's not that they solve the different problems. It is a new niche area that's been developed now. Every open source trying to solve some unique problem that someone who are facing, and it's not that we we should not restrict our architecture, or we should not restrict our strategy to only use whatever I have. Definitely, you should take care of security. You should take care of third-party open source compliance and all those stuff there. That's something is given. But at the same time, your architecture should be such a way that you should be able to embrace that technology as well. And that's where we talk about building the strong AI architecture as well. Let's little bit deep dive into the how can we scale the AI businesses. So before that, I mean, there has been also the notion is that AI is really able to live up to the expectation. Do you see the good turnaround time of AI? No, I mean that's a fact of it, right? Let's accept the fact that still there is a hype about the AI. But yeah, you see everywhere the artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science technologies. People has been yeah, there's something great happening out there. But does everything that people think or imagine is getting transformed into the output? It's not there. I mean, there are about only 64% of the demand that we're able to keep it. At the same time, there is a complexity that we struggle when we implement the AI is also high. It's not as straightforward as the way we are building the traditional software development as well. At the same time, we also have a shortage of data scientists or the resources that we need to work on the AI. And believe me, in the last few years, or I'm saying every year or every month, we are getting many people getting to the courses of data science. We have a lot of material available, and people are building it. So I'm sure this shortage would be managed, but still going forward, we still see a lot of potential required. But at the moment, there has been a lot of challenges in this space there. But there's a big opportunity. That's something we have to acknowledge as well. I mean, we would say there are challenges, but there are huge opportunities that's upcoming as well. So the AI core technologies, so a lot of the there will be huge demand for the in the business which getting reinvented using the machine learning, deep learning. There has been the scalability across the enterprise ITs which is required. You see a lot of RPA implementation, what we call as a robotic process automation or intelligent process automation. So many of desk jobs that people are doing, those will be done with the robots going forward, and which is happening in the reality as well. You see the RPA is the most disrupting places in the industries as well today. Third part is the interactivity was going to change. So today we still quite depend on Alexas. You see the way the interaction of your being changing the system, not even with the computer system, but the environment that you work upon, right? So you already see there has been many devices coming up where you give the command to device and it start working on it. I'm sure the many of the automobile companies have been leveraging that. You give the command to open the windows, increase the volume, reduce the volume. You see now a house Alexa has been kind easily configurable, where say, increase the AC temperature for my house, or switch off this light, change the volume, change the channel. All those are the initial stages that we see how the AI is changing. But the interactivity with the system that you see is also going to change more on this way. So you have to be very cognizant about the fact that there has been going to be a lot of demand going forward of the AI. At the same time, how is going to change the future. So there is a way of doing it. And today, another one more challenge that we foresee is that there's a disconnection within the organization as well. So today we have a data scientist who wanted to build the different need for himself. So there is a landscape. He can't keep with the landscape. You want to build something at the faster pace. We have CIO organization who is more concerned about the cost and all those kind of stuff. But at the same time, the IT guys who really want to take your solution from your data science to the production, they don't understand what these guys are doing. And I mean, they more worried about compliance, security, and all those things, and putting things that into the production they never seen before. Not much documentation support. There will be loopholes, might be the third parties that they use. They have all those worries. So these personas have been segregated, and we have to empathize these personas in order to make your output more compliance to your enterprises. So how do we need to reimagine this, the overall business process, and how you make it available to the enterprise AI altogether? Let's understand what is the enterprise AI before we get into the how do we solve this problem. But importantly, the enterprise AI is nothing but when you look forward for connecting to the end-to-end solutions. So we are either you are making it make your data, you make your machine learning AI model, but AI model can only solve the problem. The important that you are trying to solve the business problem, not your AI problem as such, and connectivity to the business is important. So when you think through this end-to-end way of it, where your data is available, is been curated, you create machine learning model, and you connect that back to either your business application or your RPA or your chatbot or your analytics somewhere who is taking the decision and taking the action on top of it, right? That's connectivity is very much important. So when you think about end-to-end aspects of it, that's where the enterprise AI comes in picture. Otherwise, I can do my POCs in the Excel data and I can show you wonderful result, but the result is no use unless it's not solving my key business problems. And that's where the enterprise AI comes in the picture. And how does the intelligent information management support here, right? So importantly, the tools that you have been using for, let's say, last decades, though this tool might not be so much valid now, or maybe the way data getting curated. Earlier we have more RDBMS system where you used to get data and stored there. Now we have different kind of data coming in, right? We have data coming from streams, we have data coming from social media, we have data stored on the Hadoop kind of big data data set. So you need to have tools which can able to bring this data together. The data has to be composed together in order to build something meaningful, right? And then you need to have an orchestration framework, or look at the data that you get from the different kind of sources, and how I can orchestrate that data at the one place, irrespective of data coming from on-prem or irrespective of data is coming from the cloud. That's something we have to comply there. But at the end of it, also governance of the data is something which is very important, and the governance can happen at the same time when we are building the whole system as well. So who should see what data, how the compliance to be taken care, and that part is also important in this case. Important part, how should we strategize this whole architecture, or how should we make this strategy? We have to think in the form of making the assembly line which connects to your data, the assembly line which make you learn things, and how you can scale and consume the data going forward. These are the very important parameters that's something we have to touch upon. First and foremost, that connectivity part. So either you are connecting to your stream data, structured data, unstructured data, and all those different data sets. That's to check that how does the data connection has been made there. Once you have data connected to all the places, you have to orchestrate them at the one place. And once your data is available in the orchestrative format, importantly, that then you look at the data preparation part of it, and that you do the agile data preparation, and you filter data. That's something that you need to. So now your data coming from different sources at one place, and that data is something that's important for your machine learning model. That's something you are taking it out there. And now you start doing your machine learning model or deep learning model. You start training the model. Your model is available, and learning of the model is done in the infrastructure. And then you look at how I can scale and deploy the model. So importantly, you will first deploy the model. The deployment model is not only the bigger thing. You might start getting your inferences, but the important part is that you should be monitoring your model. So once you monitor, you know the accuracy of model, how much accuracy it's providing. Does it, getting more? It's getting less. How does the overall things working there? The refinement also you have to do sometimes. You have to maybe look at the training data is proper or not, and you have to look at what point of time I could retire the model as well. So it's the replacement and retirement is also the important part of the model life cycle management. Otherwise, you not get accurate results. So you need to have the infrastructure where you could able to scale these functions, right? And also not only horizontal scaling but also the vertical scaling in some cases as well. But the last and important part, that how did you get consumed, because this model, as we spoke before, if you really wanted to make the enterprise level strategy for AI adoption, it's not there when you only talk about making these models are available or consumable on the on your POC level or on your production system. There has to be solved some business problem. It has to be integrated with your business applications. They have to be integrated with your with your RPAs or either your visualization framework. And that's where we would say that the enterprise AI would be the complete, and then this would be a strategic adoption to it. If you follow this process, I'm sure you would have look at your data scientists can build and make the compliance part, because when you look at the assembly line where you're connecting all the personas together in previous way, though there's a transparency between the data engineer and your the DevOps person who is actually deploying the model or playing the act into the what they're doing for deploying at the scale. At the same time, since you know how things are running and how you have to be comply with that, you can also manage your cost well. So if you look at the AI, is not as an isolated organizational part, but also at the end-to-end part, from value chain, start from your data engineer, data science, DevOps, and also the development team. I'm sure you will have a very different aspects of understanding from them. Let's look at the quick example, and we will just flash to it. We look at the example of how the manufacturing company. So this is the manufacturing company which, let's say, building the piston, or you can look at the crankshaft or some of the assembly that they're building in. And this assembly building, typically they do manually earlier. They want to leverage the technology part of it, and technology they want to leverage via the let's say IR images. So first you take the IR images, then you apply on that particular component the pressure, and when you put the pressure, the sensor would tell you whether how much pressure this particular component is taking, and again you have data to give the reliance with that. What we're to achieve, we're to make like smart quality app where we would say that this particular component is really reliable, and also we predict that how in the future it would behave. Currently, if you see how it could be implemented, if you think the different technologies are involved. So for pressure sensors, we have IoT, and IoT data stored in the Kafka streaming. Then we have IR images. This is a huge data which is typically can be analyzed with the computer vision, and this data is with the IR camera stored in the Hadoop. And then you have some R model, that's something you build, to do the image processing offline to check that that it's been built as per dimension given, and then you have to merge that data. And maybe then you have to do the predictive analytics, building in SAP HANA or using in that part there. So there's a lot of disconnection when I don't think of my Kafka data merged with my image data which has come, and then I could fit that data for doing the predictive analytics or sending that part. Today they could be lying in the silo in my overall infrastructure. But if you think from the pipelining aspects of it, or if you think from the data orchestration from the beginning, where you could make the orchestration and pipelining such a way that the data is coming from Kafka, and also I'm getting the data of what I see with the image processing that I directly do on the Hadoop, or on the machine learning model that I read particular images, and the consolidation of the data I would send to the HANA. We do correlation, and then it can relate to the deliver the quality app, and also do the production rate. So this could be the pipeline that can be stream flow the data, and also we can deal with your functions with the AI and leverage the AI from end-to-end point of view. This is the way we feel that when you get to embrace the open source. So look at this like a building an orchestra where there has been a different different instrument being played with the different different players, but at the end of it, it has to be orchestrated properly, and it should create an good music. And that's something someone would like to hear it. When you maybe listen them in silo, they will not make sense, but when you listen them together, it makes a good melody. Same logic applies here as well, where you look at the data coming from different sources. You should be embrace the open source. So either you use Spark, Python, or you use HANA. You have many new technologies coming up for doing your model serving or model writing part of it. And everything has to be done based on the stack which is provided by the hyperscalers. That's very important today's day, otherwise you will not be able to scale. And then you have your private or on-prem instance of it, or you have a cloud instance of it, but make sure you are running something technology which is Docker and Kubernetes kind of technology, which is really elastic in the nature, which can in a few seconds it can expand and it can contrast, so you really don't need to assign dedicated set of resources for that, and it can also be scalable at the faster pace. We can also have integration that quickly done with the business processes, and we can get that output at the faster pace. This is the way ideally the AI strategy should be look at it, where you are bringing data, you are having a runtime, you have the environment which can source a pretty faster way, and also you connect with your data sources. So you have to think from the end-to-end perspective. From the strategy point of view, what we assist is that you should start with the comprehensive information management across the enterprise. So you get the information from them, delivery of the data or the visualization part. So once your data is set up there, you build your visualization layer. So at least you can visualize what data that you are coming from a different sources. Start doing the machine learning experimentation, identify use case in your environment, start building them interactively so they can be used for making the better use cases. Then you look at for deployment of machine learning model and the deep learning model for your production. So you have data, you have your visualization layer set up, and then you are getting into your machine learning models to be building. If you start directly building your machine learning model without having your base rate stronger, your machine learning model will never able to be sustained in the production, and you have to definitely do a lot of backend piping, which we should not sustain for a long time. And third and important part, they augmented your business process with the automation or conversational AI, or you wanted to bring that to your analytics, or making that to the part of your business process. That's the important part there. So that's the way we look at that. When you want to realize your AI strategy at the enterprise level, these are the few things that you should follow. With that, I would end my presentation and open for questions. Hope I'm good, doing good on the time, Brian.
I think you're doing perfectly well on the time, Rahul. If I could ask you to stop sharing your presentation, that would be fantastic. Thank you once again for a masterclass in your presentation. Very much appreciated. And I know that from seeing some of the questions that are coming in, that's very true. And Rahul, if I may start simply by asking a very simple question for you, not for the rest of us, of course. AI is evolving fast, and the topics and technologies are changing at such a rapid pace these days. How can we be sure that we are taking the appropriate steps and the right amount of care when we're looking at building enterprise architecture? What are your thoughts around that, if I may ask?
Can you please repeat the question? It was a little lag.
Yeah, absolutely, not a problem. What I was saying was AI, as you know, you're intimately associated with it, is evolving topic-wise and speed-wise, technology-wise on almost on an exponential basis. When businesses are looking at what they're building from an enterprise architecture perspective, what should they be looking at to ensure that they're taking the right steps and putting the right sort of governance and care in place?
Yeah, very good question. I mean, this is what today's most of the, I would say, enterprise architectures should be thinking about from strategy point of view. First and foremost, the thing I would say is scalability. So, you know, they had to look at the environment which could be scaled at the higher cost, take the advantage of cloud. If they are doing on-prem, then look at for how they containerize their applications, how can they go to the Kubernetes way of doing it, or the similar kind of infrastructure. So there would be always the case where, you know, they can take a latest technology advantage and move their all applications across the hyperscalers. And also from a hyperscalers perspective, you should look at the multi-cloud approach always. So not to be have one hyperscaler and you build everything on the one hyperscaler, but you get to the then you have to transfer to the somewhere else. You get hooked to it. So there are like good frameworks available like Gartner Kubernetes, which we typically use, which can you build your application one hyperscaler and then you can go across to the different hyperscalers as well. So I mean the cloud strategy is something is important to try to make it cloud strategy the first, but also don't hook to the technology which would stop your enablement to leverage the open sources. And it's, believe me, it's been a learning being within the organization as well as the enterprise organization as well, where we try to hook to the something and then it just in a 2 years time everything the whole game got changed, and then we need to look for substitute for that, and then that's not a good strategy where you have to hook to something which is very very tight integration there. So I think try to be as generic as you would be. It's not always possible that you could have more generic component in your key architectures, but try to be where it's a scalability and something like the architecture which allow you to move across to the hyperscaler. And then going forward, I think it's going to be very common ways there. You will have a common architecture for managing the multi-cloud systems very easily. So multi-cloud should be the strategy that organization should be think about as well.
Thank you for that, Rahul. That's very much appreciated. Great insight. And moving on to the sort of next one, and I suppose this one's slightly more difficult depending on people's usage around they use it. I mean, a lot of people talk about it, they don't necessarily know, especially if you're in the business side of things like myself, you don't really get the insight that you should do sometimes. But how do you integrate your business processes with machine learning? Are there any sort of real use cases out there that are really showing best practice? Because I hear a lot about people saying that we're going down the route of machine learning, and then you say to them, well, what does that mean for your business? And they're like, well, we're going down the route of machine learning. And I'm like, okay, but what are you looking to get out of it? What should a business be looking to get out of integrating machine learning with their business processes?
Yeah, that's a reality. Let's put it that way. Everyone want to go with the machine learning and AI leverage, but it's more taken as a buzzword. But businesses perspective, I think they should be very clear about what they want to achieve. Right? They should start with the use case that they have in mind. They know. So maybe you can take a simple example that yeah, something we built for the bank, right? And the credit risk was the challenge, and they wanted to say, can you give me? So there's a big problem, right? The credit, how can I get the credit risk for a particular the particular client? And then what are the parameters should I look at it from that perspective? And we started working backward from there to see what are data available, how can we see this guy has been doing in all the places, and then we started predicting based on that. So the important part is that what problem you are trying to solve. The technology is never going to be challenged. Technology is widely available for all the things. And you said always you go with the, let's say, 5 problem I want to solve, and then you come back to the technology stack point of view, whether they're possible to solve or not. But if you start with the other way around, looking at what data I have and what problem and what outcome I can get, and then I try to retrofit that with my business problems, that never works. I mean, that's only shown to good in PPT or showing that 5 projects that we have done in machine learning, but you'll never do success that if you're trying to solve the real business problem. I'm sure out of 5 problems, you could get 2 problems right, 3 problems wrong, and but at least you are solving something which helping a business to make the money or helping business to reduce the money in some cases. But you could try other way around, things would never work. And you have to give a very strict guideline to your technical team as well. Whatever you are building, it has to retrofit to my business processes and not as a science fiction project to build it.
Fantastic, thanks for that. And are there any sort of online sort of resources or case studies that you would recommend directing business people to go and look at before they start going down the route of really saying, this is what we want to do, but to get a better handle of people who've been through the journey and really know what they're doing, other than, of course, knocking on your door and saying, Rahul, can you come and help us? Which is always a way to go. But any sort of resources out there which we can access to really sort of make sure that we're seeing the right things?
Yeah, so there is, I think, this Kaggle is a very good technology and business part, the Kaggle website that you see. I think they have been open source and many contributions happen to that as well. And we also refer sometimes to that place to see what are the innovations people are doing and contributing to it. So I think that's something which would be a good starting point to start looking at resource where you would see the real-time examples has been published in different domains to solve the business problems, and they also have some test data available or something like that where you can play around as well. So that's where people can get started to see some kind of meaningful outcome.
Fantastic. And we've just got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions at this stage. One of the big things that, especially from a European perspective, and it's going to and is increasingly drifting across the Atlantic and farther globally, is the issues around data protection, privacy, how you address them when you're designing enterprise architecture for AI is obviously quite an important part for a lot of businesses now. The penalties are extreme if you get this wrong. And can affect the ongoing health of every business if you get it massively wrong. What stage do you build this in? How do you address it? Is it straight at the start as part of the kind of strategic road mapping, or do you bring it in once you've kind of got the other parts? From your perspective, where is it best to sit this?
So it's the very good question and pretty near to me as well. As we build a new application. So we are in the process of building some new applications as well at the point of time, and also what we built in the past. It's been, as you're rightly saying, there are a lot of new guidelines coming up around data protection, privacy, what should be seen, what should not be seen, and how you design your software. The later part you try to do, you're never able to achieve it, right? So you need to have that architecture to be designed the moment you start thinking about your application that you want to build it. Especially maybe a little technical way of putting it across is the when we build a multi-run application, right? So typically nowadays applications are get built on the cloud, and then there's a tenancy and roles and how does you do this accounts and sub account. We also create new concept called zone for so what who can see what kind of aspects there. So very meticulously you have to design your software considering that who should see what and in what premises he should see what. So yeah, maybe right now in the context of machine learning, especially with data, is very important because we say that you bring your model to the cloud, you bring your data to training your model on the cloud, and then we train there, and then you get your inferences or your output of your real-time data once you do the training. Now we have to be very careful when we ask for training the data to get it, because me as a SAP or me as a vendor, I shouldn't be seeing the data what customer is bringing. So he should be bringing in his tenant space, his own cloud account, and when there is a training done. So though I am only doing the activity for running his model, I shouldn't be looking into data. So I have to very well may mark the division of what data coming in and what I'm doing processing of the data. So processing and the data logic part, we have to differentiate at every layer. And when being we are an SAP and a European company, we are very strict about this all the norms. And for us, when we start designing the architecture, first thing we look at that, okay, what data protection privacy could come. And what, so let's say there is some ticket come, so via ticket we have to take consent from customer, and then only be able to look at the data for their model. Maybe data is all residing in our cloud, but we should not, no one should be allowed to look at the data. Same thing happens when you are inferring the data or you are building that back to your business services or solving your business problem. Who should see what is very important. So these are the questions that you have to answer at every stage. Does this person is authorized to see this data, especially when you are building a cloud ready application within the organizations as well, or when you are building the bigger product like what SAP builds end-to-end big products at that level. So data security has to be taken at the first level of your architecture part, and your architecture nowadays driven with the protection, privacy, and data security aspects of it. Then you build the right application. We had in the past built few applications where also architecting without considering this fact, and we said, okay, we figure out that once we have running application available, but once you build the stack, it's very difficult to change the nuts and bolt out of it later point of time. So I would say consider this as the first requirement as we start building the architecture.
Fantastic, Rahul. Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing your knowledge so generously and sparing us the time to join us today. Very much appreciated. Look forward to catching up in due course, but for now, thank you very much indeed for your time and input, and have a thoroughly enjoyable rest of the week.
Yeah, same to you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Brian, and present in your conferences. So great
Fantastic.
Job. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, Rahul. Take care. So, everyone, now at this stage, normally I'd be saying, please rejoin us again at the top of the hour for the final session in the conference series. Unfortunately, I've been informed that our final speaker can't join us today, which is a shame, as a fantastic presentation would have been really great. However, I hope that the previous sessions have at worst whetted the appetite to explore and engage around your infrastructure and what you can do now that the cloud is a really tangible part of what we're doing within the business community. These sessions will be available on demand as other sessions in the series have been very shortly, so please feel free to access the links that you'll be provided to enjoy the sessions. Any queries or questions, please keep the conversations going online, either through my colleague Vijay's link, which you will have seen coming up throughout the conference, or with Jose's link as well. And finally, as you may be aware, we have our flagship BTOES from Home virtual conference coming up from the 17th to the 19th of November, which promises to be the most interactive cross-industry event of the year, especially within the transformation and operational excellence space. I can promise you that you won't attend another event like that this year, or maybe for quite some time. Lots of opportunities to interact with peers, learn from solution providers, contact, discuss, meet, and one or two unusual sort of nuances engaged as well. So finally, thank you so much for sparing the time to join us at this conference. I hope it's been as enjoyable for you as it has for us in presenting it to you. And as I say, if there's anything else you need, please let us know. All it remains for me to say is please keep safe and well, and thank you. Bye-bye.